Hello, historical geology students. This is the last chapter for the class of historical geology. This is chapter 19 on primate and human evolution. Primates include monkeys, apes, and humans. But when we talk about humans, people use the word hominids sometimes, which involves modern humans, Homo sapiens, and many ancient humans, such as Australopithecines, Homo habilis, Homo erectus, and Neanderthals, which are all extinct except for us, Homo sapiens. Anthropologists study ancient human history, and we've been finding old bones from various ancient types of humans over the last 200 years, and we're going to look at the evidence to see what it indicates about how humans have evolved. Once again, primates are monkeys, apes, and hominids. Here you can see 4 different primates. This is a tarsier monkey, and these types of monkeys, like the tarsier, are called prosimi. So there's 3 kinds of monkeys. We have 3 kinds of monkeys, and on the test there might be pictures of monkeys, and you need to know what type of monkey you're looking at. We have prosimi, New World monkeys, which originated in South America originally, and Old World monkeys, which originated in Africa originally. Let's take a look at these 3 kinds of monkeys by looking at photographs. This is a typical prosimi monkey. These are the most primitive of all the monkeys and the least intelligent. They're characterized by having very big eyes. Why do they have big eyes like this? Because they're nocturnal monkeys, meaning that they sleep during the day and hunt at night. So, and their eyes are very like big circles. Small noses. They have 5 toes. All of them have 5 toes that they use to grasp onto tree branches, because prosimi monkeys are what we call arboreal, meaning that they live in trees. Prosimi monkeys are also usually very small. Some of them are smaller than your hand. Here you can see a typical Old World monkey. Old World monkeys originated in Africa, and Old World monkeys are usually bigger than New World monkeys. Most of them live on the ground. They're not arboreal, and they have very small tails, and many of them have no tail. Another thing that makes them different is Old World monkeys, the eyes can only see in black and white. They cannot see colors, and the nostrils point downwards. They have long noses that point down. That's a Old World monkey. New World monkeys, on the other hand, are usually smaller than Old World monkeys. New World monkeys have flat noses, and they can see things just like we can in color. And most of them have a long prehensile tail, a long muscular tail that they use to hang in the trees, because New World monkeys are almost all arboreal, meaning they live in trees. Apes are a lot different than monkeys, because apes are much more intelligent, don't have a tail, and they have complex social patterns and much larger brains. And they include chimpanzees, gorillas, and orangutans. Let's take a look at some of these. Chimpanzees' DNA are more close to humans than any other animal in the animal kingdom. No, that does not mean we came from chimpanzees. Just saying that our DNA is very close and we had a common ancestor in the past. That's what the data would indicate. So chimpanzees are the most intelligent of the apes. They can learn how to use tools. They can understand human language if they're trained. Complex social patterns, usually with the alpha male and the alpha female of a group of chimpanzees of anywhere from 10 to 20, being the leaders of the group of chimpanzees. Then we have gorillas, which are the most powerful and strong of the apes. And then we have orangutans. Have you ever seen the orangutans are this orange color and with very wide faces like this, and a reddish beard? Have you ever seen the movie Planet of the Apes? That makes it easy if you want to remember who are the apes. The orangutans, the gorillas, and the chimpanzees. As primates evolved, they developed larger and larger brain sizes. Why? Because there's an advantage to intelligence. It's always the same reason. Darwin's idea of evolution explains how species evolve. Species evolve because they have an advantage, and that advantage leads to them having a higher chance of survival to the age of sexual maturity. And when they attract the opposite sex, and if that partner is fertile and you're fertile, you get to pass on your DNA. That's just common sense, if you ask me. It doesn't indicate that there's not a creator. It's important to note. I happen to believe there is a creator. It just indicates that species change. Here you can see a prosimy monkey, very small with its big eyes and its 5 toes. And usually have long claws or nails. And that's also to help it stay in the trees. This just looks different. It's tiny. It's got big eyes, grasping feet, 5 toes. Easy to remember for the test. Prosimy monkeys, the most primitive and least intelligent of the monkeys. Let's take a look at some other monkeys here. Let's take a look at some old world monkeys, which originated in Africa. The baboon, a typical old world monkey. Notice how its nostrils point downwards. This one's got a small tail. It's not one for hanging the trees like you'd see in the New World monkey. But it's got a large head, indicating a relatively large brain. They have some social structures that but not as advanced as in apes. Apes have very complex social structures. This is another monkey that's an old world monkey. You can see it's got a huge nose. They call this proboscis, meaning nose, big nose in Latin. I've always thought this is a strange looking monkey, but it's an old world monkey. Let's take a look at some New World monkeys, which originated in Africa. South America. New World monkeys, South America. Old World monkeys originated in Africa. And you can see that the typical New World monkey, like the capuchin monkeys, live in the trees, long prehensile tail, flat noses. And These can be quite intelligent. I was once in Berlin, in Deutschland, in Germany, and we saw some German people who had trained these monkeys. They put them in clothes, and they come up to you and beg for money, and it's amazing that how these capuchin monkeys can be trained. Here's some more New World monkeys. So what are anthropoids? Anthropoids are any monkey that's not prosimy. In other words, New World and Old World monkeys, and apes too, are anthropoids. Anthropoids. They're not hominids. Hominids are humans. Here you can see a typical, is this an old or New World monkey? This is an Old World monkey. Look how its nose points downwards. It's living on the ground. It's big. Typical Old World monkey. This is a New World monkey. It's called a spider monkey. Look at the long prehensile tail. It's living up in trees. It's got a flat nose. And then here's an ape, a chimpanzee. Much larger brain than monkeys, but they're all anthropoids. Again, is this a New World monkey or an Old World monkey? Right, you're right. It's an Old World monkey. Notice how close the nostrils are and how they point down. No prehensile tail. Living out on the ground. It's an Old World monkey. Humans evolved originally in Africa. And hominids, humans have, there's always been a debate. There was a debate in the 19th century. Some people said that humans originated in Asia. Others said humans originated in Europe. But both groups were wrong. Now all of the data indicates that all human beings, Homo sapiens, originated in Africa. If you get a 23andMe test or Ancestry.com test, it could tell you when your ancestors left Africa. How do we know that all humans began in Africa? Well, we know because every single ancient human bone, that means human bones older than 1.5 million years old, are found only in Africa, nowhere else. Second reason why we know that humans must have begun in Africa is that if you look at the DNA of all the different types of people around the planet, all the different races, there is less genetic diversity in the people around the world than just in the different parts of Africa. So another way of saying it is there's more genetic diversity in Africa than just amongst different Africans than any other place in the world. And the only way to get that type of genetic diversity is if the DNA of people from Africa is ancient, the oldest DNA. So therefore, humans must have begun in Africa. In fact, if you look at some of the DNA evidence, and there's two ways of tracing back your ancestry, but we're much better at mitochondrial DNA. Mitochondrial DNA is the DNA stored in the mitochondria of your cells. And it works best from a woman to her mother, to her mother, to her mother, to her mother. In other words, that's called the matrilineal line. That's what we're best at the moment. And it appears as if the DNA of every woman in the world can be traced back to one woman in Africa 100,000 years ago. Some people call her Eve. And if you do the Y DNA analysis, the DNA of every man can be traced back to one man in Africa. Some people call him Adam. That's one way you could interpret that. But hominids have something. We have a lot. Hominids are all humans, including ancient humans, have a fossil record of nearly 7 million years. We're going to take a look at. But what are the hallmarks of a hominid? What makes them different than apes or monkeys? Is that we can walk upright. Apes, for example, like a chimpanzee, will walk on its knuckles. We, on the other hand, walk on our feet with our back straight. We're bipeds. We only walk on our two legs. We don't use our arms to walk. We don't have big canine teeth like apes and monkeys. And especially, we have learned to make tools. Here you can see how the difference between the way a gorilla, which is an ape, and the hominid walks. You can see that the ape is going to use its knuckles to walk on, and its ischium bone, which is its pelvis, is structured so that it does not walk upright. Much different than a human or hominid. Here you could compare the brains of a monkey, an ape, and a human. We all have the same basic structure, indicating there is some common ancestry somewhere. It doesn't mean we came from monkeys or apes. It means there was a common ancestor of the monkeys, apes, and the humans. And we have a frontal lobe, parietal lobe, a temporal lobe, an occipital lobe, and a cerebellum. Why would we have the same structure unless we had a common ancestor? It indicates that that's the way. There must have been a common ancestor. We surmise that this common ancestor probably existed maybe 7 million years ago. The data is still coming in. We don't know. But the monkeys have a smaller brain than the apes, and the apes have a smaller brain than the human. Let's talk about the earliest known humans, or hominids. And they're called Australopithecines. They don't belong to the same genus as us. They belong to the genus Australopithecus, because we don't know if they're related to genus Homo or not. Some people say they are. But these are the earliest hominids, and they did walk upright. They were found in rocks that are anywhere from 2.8 to 3.8 million years old in Africa. They never left Africa. But they are the first hominids that we have abundant fossils for. Some people say the birthplace of humanity must have been Ethiopia, because that's where we find lots and lots of their bones. They did walk upright. They had a smaller brain. Some features that are not found in modern hominids, such as a lot more body hair. They have these eyebrow ridges found in primitive hominids. A smaller brain, maybe a third the size of a Homo sapiens brain. So they were not as intelligent. They didn't make tools. They didn't have all the hallmarks of what we call civilization. We don't think they had a language. We don't think they made clothing. They were primitive. But the Leakeys, who are these anthropologists who studied hominids a lot, found these footprints in volcanic ash about 3.5 million years ago, rocks that are 3.5 million years old, and they indicate something quite interesting about Australopithecines. Here you can see a male Australopithecines footprints, and he's walking side by side with a female, and there's a child walking with it. This is a hallmark of hominids, the family unit. mother, father, and child. And so we believe that Australopithecines may have what we call a family, where a male and a female bond together and they have a child, a typical family. The next, so this is Lucy, an Australopithecines. You can see she did walk upright, and it's found in rocks that are 3.5 million years old in Ethiopia from a anthropologist by the name of Donald Johanson. If you ever have a chance to look at Donald Johanson's YouTube videos, you can see you'll be inspired by his dedication and his passion for understanding the ancestry of the human race. Here you can see how Australopithecines living in Africa in family units, they did walk upright, the hallmark of hominids. Australopithecines, once again, never left Africa. They didn't make tools. They didn't build fires. They didn't cook their food. Here you can see another Australopithecines. Once again, you should know this. Australopithecines, they lived before modern humans, who are genus Homo. So Homo sapiens is our species. But we're also going to talk about some older members of genus Homo. The older hominids are the Australopithecines. They lived in Africa. Here you can see smaller brain case, protruding jaw, eyebrow ridges, things that are not found in modern humans. Here's another Australopithecines. There are different varieties. Eyebrow ridge, smaller brain, sloping skull at the top, jutting out jaw, all hallmarks, and smaller brain case of Australopithecines. Many anthropologists believe that Australopithecines evolved to genus Homo, including Homo habilis, Homo erectus, the Neanderthals, and Homo sapiens. Genus Homo. So once again, we belong to genus Homo. Homo is our genus. We're also going to talk about Homo erectus. We're going to talk about before Homo erectus, Homo habilis. We're going to talk about the Neanderthals. Let's take a look here. Homo habilis is an early type of genus Homo. And what makes genus Homo different than the Australopithecines? First of all, we have a larger brain case, smaller eyebrow ridges, and our jaws don't protrude as much. And Homo habilis invented cooking. Sometime, maybe 2 million years ago, maybe 1.8 million years ago, we're not absolutely sure. There's evidence that we learned to cook our food. Homo habilis learned to cook their food. Now that gives them a big advantage, because when you cook food, the food lasts longer. The meat won't rot as quickly, and also it makes it easier to digest. Homo habilis never left Africa. There's no evidence that it left Africa. The next member of genus Homo we're going to learn about is Homo erectus. Look at its skull. Still got eyebrow ridges, but they're smaller, but the brain is somewhat larger than Homo habilis, and the jaw does not protrude outwards as much. The important thing about let's first take a look at Homo erectus. Homo erectus does not look like it looks more intelligent than Homo habilis. It's got less body hair. Skin color would be a variety of colorations. Eyebrow ridges are not as protruding. The jaw doesn't protrude as much. The brain is larger. But the important thing about Homo erectus is the first member of genus Homo to leave Africa. They left Africa about 1 million years ago and conquered Europe and Asia, North America. The only places they didn't make it to were Polynesia, the islands of the Pacific, because they weren't able to develop the technology of shipping or boats. They didn't know how to make boats. But any place that they could walk to on land, they migrated to. Which brings us to the question, what happened to Homo erectus? They're not here anymore. Well, we think that the next wave, so Homo erectus left Africa 1 million years ago, but the next group of hominids to leave Africa were the Neanderthals. And they left about 400,000 years ago. They left Africa 400,000 years ago, and they replaced Homo erectus. What advantage did Neanderthals have over Homo erectus? They had a larger brain. You can see the eyebrow ridges are basically gone. We know from the structure of their throats that they could speak, so they probably had a verbal language, though there's no evidence that they were able to develop writing. The big advantage, though, is if you look at Homo erectus tools, they developed various tools, and you can see these were for spears or for scraping meat or cutting up meat. Whereas if you look at Neanderthal tools, we have much more different types of Neanderthal tools. You have Neanderthal tools, you have spear points, of course, but you also have tools for making clothing and jewelry. They wore jewelry. And so they made a variety. They even had makeup kits that were they would ground down pigments and color their bodies. Neanderthals were also had another advantage, is that they were, so here's Homo erectus. They had primitive spears, but Neanderthal spears were built much more advanced. They had a better cutting edge to them, and they lasted longer from the way they were made. Neanderthals were also adapted to cold weather. Let's take a look and see what Neanderthals look like. Neanderthals were big, strong people, much more muscular bigger boned than Homo sapiens today. They were strong individuals, and the males would carry their prized possession, this big spear. A Neanderthal spear was a prized possession for the males, and they would use it to stab their prey. Neanderthals, look at their noses. Let's take a look at the Neanderthal nose. Look how huge their nose and navel passages are. That's an advantage when you're living in cold weather. It makes it easier to breathe. Their whole body, all the strong body, short. They were short, not as tall as modern humans, but they were stout, and they were all advantages in living in the cold. We also think that their diet was almost 100% meat. We used to think that the Neanderthals were primitive beasts. When we first learned about Neanderthals in the Neanderthal Valley of Germany, people thought they were dumb and stupid. But now we know their brains are just as big as modern humans, and in some cases bigger. Here you can take a look at a Neanderthal skull versus a Homo sapiens skull. You can see that the Neanderthal skull is more dome-like. We know that they did have clothing, and we also know that they were not dumb brutes. Neanderthals buried flowers with their dead. They had makeup kits. They had jewelry. They undoubtedly had a language, a verbal language. So obviously we're here and Neanderthals are not here. What happened to the Neanderthals? Well, as I mentioned before, the Neanderthals left Africa 400,000 years ago and replaced the Homo erectus, except for a small group in Indonesia, which survived till about 12,000 years ago, and they eventually became extinct. But anyway, when did the first humans, Homo sapiens, leave Africa? The evidence now is that the first humans left Africa 100,000 years ago. But at that time, how do you get from Africa into the rest of the world? You have to go through the Middle East. They crossed the Red Sea. Back then, 100,000 years ago, the Red Sea was dried up, and they could easily cross. But they were defeated by the Neanderthals in a variety of battles. All people who have non-African ancestry originate from the next group of hominids, and that is of Homo sapiens who left Africa, and that was 60,000 years ago. So all modern Europeans, Asians, Middle Easterners, people from the entire world except for Africa originate from the group of a couple thousand people who crossed over the Red Sea about 60,000 years ago. The second time they crossed over, they defeated the Neanderthals. We know that because they're not here and we are. And when you look at the bones of Neanderthals in Europe and Asia, there are communities of Neanderthals from 15 to 25, or sometimes less if there was disease and people killed, spread out through Europe and Asia. But as Homo sapiens moves in, we find that the Neanderthal communities are gone. So there's only two possibilities. Either our ancestors wiped out the Neanderthals, or the second possibility is that some Homo sapiens mated with Neanderthals, so that there still is Neanderthal blood and DNA in the human race today. At first, most people thought that Homo sapiens wiped out the Neanderthals, because the advantage that that Homo sapiens, ancient Homo sapiens, are called Cro-Magnon man. Now let's take a look at their spears versus Neanderthal spears. Okay, so this is a Neanderthal with his big spear, and this is a ancient Homo sapiens with its much thinner shafted spear and more aerodynamic spear. The difference is that the Homo sapiens spear can be thrown and you can kill from a distance. That was the first big advantage that led to the demise of the Neanderthals, is that we developed the throwing spear. The second is most people think that the language abilities of Cro-Magnon man, or ancient Homo sapiens, was more advanced than Neanderthals, and they lived in larger groups. And Cro-Magnon man also, there's some things that are hallmarks of modern humans, Homo sapiens. The ability to make music, the ability to write, the ability to produce art. And you could see that ancient Homo sapiens made cave paintings. This was something that the Neanderthals could never do. Here you can see some off of France, these beautiful cave paintings in what we call prehistory, before human civilization, before maybe 6,000 or 7,000 years ago. So the question is there any Neanderthal DNA left in the human race today? And the answer to that has been answered. We now know the answer to that. That's what I love about science, is that we're constantly learning new things. We take the DNA from people from all around the world, all different races, and we find that anybody without pure African blood has between 2 and 5% Neanderthal DNA. So how do we know that? Because old Neanderthal bones were discovered in a cave in Eastern Europe. I think the country is Slovenia, and we were able to sequence the entire Neanderthal DNA code and compare it to modern humans. And all people who have an ancestry that is at least in part outside of Africa have between 2 to 5% Neanderthal DNA, indicating that what happened was our ancestors, when they encountered the Neanderthals, killed them off, but some of us mated with them, producing half Homo sapiens, half Neanderthal babies. We see skeletons of babies that are half and half Neanderthal and half Homo sapiens. So we must have mated with them. Let's take a look at these Neanderthals. And the other thing that is quite interesting in the recent evidence is red hair. The gene for red hair, many think, comes from Neanderthals. Why do we say that? Well, first of all, most Neanderthals were redheads, according to the DNA evidence. And the evidence also indicates that red hair did not exist before humans mated with the Neanderthals. And the other thing that points to this is that people with red hair have the most Neanderthal DNA. Typical Neanderthal skull you can see here. Dome-shaped head. Neanderthals were more massive and muscular than modern humans. Shorter limbs, adapted for cold weather. And they had the genes for red hair and lighter skin. So why are people outside of Africa, why do they have lighter skin? Well, there's a lot of reasons for that. One hypothesis is that it's from interbreeding with the Neanderthals. The other, and there's another possibility that, and maybe it's both of those working together, is that in Africa, if you have darker skin, you have an advantage. And the advantage is you're not going to get skin cancer. But when you leave Africa and you go to cloudy parts of the world like Europe and Asia, it's an advantage to have lighter skin back in the old days. And that's because if you have lighter skin and you're living in a very cloudy area, you can still get enough sunlight to produce vitamin D for you to be healthy. But if you have darker skin and you live in a cloudy area and you don't have enough vitamin D, you develop a disease called rickets, which is only found for people who have darker skin. So it's an evolutionary thing. It was an advantage having lighter skin if you moved into cloudier parts of the world, and perhaps also lighter skin came from the Neanderthals too. Here you can see Neanderthals. They had communities, they built fires, they had clothing, they had a language. They were living quite well. This is in Iraq, until they encountered Homo sapiens and were mostly wiped out, but some of them mated with modern humans, and their DNA survives in us till today. Cro-Magnon man, an ancient type of Homo sapiens, showing a horse from back during the Ice Age in France. And only Homo sapiens has been able to develop written language, art, and music. So to end historical geology, let's talk real quickly about what happened after the Ice Age. 10,700 years ago, the Pleistocene epoch ended. The Ice Age ended. The Neanderthals were gone. There was only one type of human left, Homo sapiens. About 7 to 9,000 years ago, humans started getting together in larger communities, developing little towns, and moving away from the hunter-gatherer lifestyle. They started to farm, cultivate plants for food instead of going out in the woods and hunting for nuts and berries. They started to raise mammals for slaughter, such as cows and pigs and chickens. Somewhere around 5,000 to 6,000 years ago, people started to develop language. And about 5,000 years ago, the modern ancient civilizations, such as Imperial China, the beginnings of Japan, Mesopotamia, the beginnings of what would eventually become Rome, and the beginnings of the Greek Empire began. So about 5,000 years ago, for some odd reason, and no one's been able to explain it to me, people started to write things down. And that's where history begins and historical geology ends. Anyway, if you're interested more in geology, you're welcome to take the summer class where we have physical geology. Having the knowledge that you've gained in this class will make it easier for you to take that class. And taking summer classes is great if you want to get out of college faster. And we'll have a small class so I can pay more attention to you. And thank God we're going to meet in person instead of online. But I hope that everybody has a wonderful summer, and that's the end of the class.